1 second. Let me retweet for y'all so maybe it go further.
Oh yeah, by all means.
Yeah, let me get that started so I don't be looking weird like all up in there.
well, we're actually live now, but it's all good. Go right ahead.
Cool.
No, yeah, you're good. We can jump from there. I'm gonna do the same thing. If they come in, they see me awkwardly looking at my phone. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Man, I miss my old account. All right. Cool. Bet. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of our Election 2020 miniseries presented by Don't Call This a Podcast with thekidswearcrowns.com. I am your host, or one of your hosts, Ryan McLaughlin. Still in desperate need of a lineup and a paper and everything. It's been a long. I think last I checked, it was like February 25th when I last got a cut. So it's Struggle City. We are here.
Mm-hmm.
But we are absolutely thrilled. With me, as usual, is my co-host Ron Harris.
How's it going?
There's an audio version of this too, Ron. You can't just like peace at the And joining us, we have a special guest. We're absolutely excited to have Matt Rogers of Politidope here. How's it going?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining
absolutely. No problem at all. I'm glad you responded to my last minute DM. Because funny enough, I sent you the message. I think it was like yesterday morning.
Yeah.
Before realizing that I wasn't even going to be around yesterday afternoon because I had to go, spend time with my dad. So not only was it last minute, but I also wasn't even prepared with the day or time. It was like, oh yeah, come do this show with us, but not today.
Yeah, it happens, man. I got my own sports podcast, so I do politics all the time. So I'm dealing with the same kind of thing. Your co-host, you have a co-host, you'll have a time in your mind that you told somebody it's good to do the thing, and then you can't do it.
Oh no, we had a whole debacle last week.
Yes.
I'm originally from Georgia, but I just moved back here a couple months ago, and I keep forgetting I'm in a new time zone, so I forget that I'm back in Eastern time. And so we had this whole back and forth. Ron was like, yo, I get off at 4. I was like, all right, bet. He was like, I get off at 5. I was like, all right, bet. I'll have the show set up at 5 o'clock, but it was 4 his time. And so I was doing the show by myself, like, where's Ron? Not realizing that, Ron's at work. So, it's really organized around here. We do good things, and it's always nice and neat. Anyway, so enough about that. Before we jump into today's topics, one of the things that I really want to do is spend a little time here with Matt and talk about his background and his involvement in Politidope. Matt, you've been involved in on the political side of things for some time, right? You were a campaign manager for and my notes. I left my note. I apologize, but you have been in the political realm for quite some time now, correct?
Yeah. So I currently I work in the state legislature. I'm a chief of staff for a state legislator. But then I also have my political consulting firm. I've worked for multiple U.S. senators. I worked for the current governor, the governor before. And so don't let the age fool you. I got some stripes. So
hey,
I respect it.
That's what we want, man. We want that. We want younger folks. I don't know your age range. Ron and I aren't necessarily, we're not young anymore, but we ain't as seasoned as I think a lot of people want us to be. So, I don't know. You might be in our age range, but
I'm 29.
Okay, so you're a little bit younger than us.
Okay. Yeah.
Not by much though.
Yeah, cool. I'm 31 and Ryan is 57. So, man, you're around our age. Right.
Anyway, Ron is older. Don't let him fool you. I'm 30. I'll be 31 here in about a month and a half. But
okay, cool.
But Matt, so tell us about Politidope. Because it's for one, it's your actual tag on Twitter, but this is something that you're extremely passionate about. I've been following you on my new account now since I've had it, but on my old account, I've been following you for a couple months. I've really been interested in the information that you disseminate through your account. So tell us about Politidope, how it got started, and what you do.
So Politidope has been my Instagram handle since 2014. It was something my friend and I was like, oh, Politidope. Yeah, that's cool. That's a new way. Maybe one day people will be use that as a word. That's a cool way of doing politics. So after 2016, obviously horrible. And my wife and I were I'm involved. She voted more often than I did in the past, like every election. And she's like, obviously we're not doing enough. We're going to start a business. We're going to combine our skills here. So like, you got the political consulting, the clients, and like, building a brand. I'll make sure the trains run on time. I'm a marketing kind of person by trade. So we put it together. And so pretty much over the last 3 years and some change, I've built it's grown. Like I had like 250 followers and now it's like near 50,000 followers. It's like I put out, I just talk about political topics, and the real goal with it all is to like convince people that look like all of us, like that you don't have to be like a subject matter expert. You don't have to have been on like the county commission and like know how many potholes are on Broad Street, like to have an opinion on what you see going on in the world. And so that's what Politidope is. It's just a new way of doing politics. It's bucking the trends of like, establishment, and we know generally what the establishment looks like and what they want you to act like, and they want your preferences to be or your habits to be, but it doesn't have to be that. You have a voice, you have an opinion. Everybody talks about politics all the time. Why the hell, why the stop sign here? Why is it 55, 65? Like, so when it comes to bigger things like knees on the neck, for instance, you can talk.
Absolutely. Well, look, so like you said, you've been doing this for a while, and just kind of scrolling through your profile a little bit. When I looked earlier, I think your first step was a legislative intern in the House of Delegates in Virginia. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And you've done everything from worked for Ralph Northam. You worked for Alfonso Lopez. Check my other name right here. You also, of course, you worked for Senator Marsden. So you've got at least 7 years now of experience.
Yeah, so, coming up on 7 years.
And are you sure you're only 29 years old?
Right.
Yeah, man. In politics, like sometimes with this business, like it's not a normal business. Like, especially if you work the campaign side. If you work the side that I'm on now is more the legislative side, so you get some stability. So a lot of times, like I was working sometimes at like Buffalo Wild Wings. I was working at Men's Warehouse for little stints, because if you work on a campaign, November 8th, your person wins. Y'all excited? You drunk? Next morning, you got pay until the 15th, but you're done. And then you're trying to get hired. You're trying to get yourself hired around Thanksgiving, around Christmas. Ain't nobody trying to do an interview during that time. So so I have a different perspective than a lot of people who are sitting in these rooms with me. I've filed for unemployment before. So, when we're talking about $130 a month, that's ridiculous. And I know it's ridiculous. How do you live on $130 a month?
That's insane.
Well, you bring up a point, Ron. I'm sorry. Were you wanted to ask?
No. Go ahead.
I didn't want to steamroll the whole interview process, but you bring up a point, and this wasn't in my notes, but you made me think about a tweet from AOC that came through yesterday or the day before, where there was a pundit that basically attacked her as once again being a bartender. But it's always kind of funny to me how we have a party that is supposed to be of the working class, yet when somebody who is working class comes in and chimes in as somebody who like AOC, who was a bartender, who ends up winning office and becomes a voice of a generation. You highlight that experience. You talk about that experience.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important for us to continue as Black people, as people of color? Why do you think it's so important for us to continue to stress, especially to those who are in the working class, why politics is important in the role that it plays?
Because if it's an age-old saying, like if you're not, at the table, you're on the menu. And, whether or not, these brothers and sisters who like on Instagram will probably in your comment section sometimes saying, it doesn't matter or whatever, like we're just going to, and it's such BS. It's so frustrating because they want to talk, they build themselves up like, yeah, we're the Black Panthers. You're Martin Luther King. I'm Malcolm X. But like y'all, like, do you really think that you're going to overthrow the U.S. government who has drones and nukes no, we have one way to fix this, or we just gonna fall victim to the same system that has been rolling over us for 400 years. Are you going to join the fight? Are you going to talk about the fight and try to denigrate the people who are actually doing something?
All right. So we're going to jump back into that towards the end. I want to ask you some questions. If I don't stop now, we'll spend the entire hour just kind of poking at you and different things like that. So let's jump into the things that happened throughout the week here. First and foremost, the protests for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Black Lives Matter as a whole continue, with all kinds of protests, as we have noted before, happening in all 50 states. But more than ever, the country stance on Black Lives Matter as a movement has begun to change in a positive direction. Ron, I'll start with you since we've kind of dominated the entire show for the last 10 minutes. Do you think that the now positive views on Black Lives Matter can mean something down the line, or are you understandably pessimistic?
I'm pessimistic by nature, but this is actually good to see Black Lives Matter, to see so many statements, to see Black Lives Matter being talked about, to have, and this actually happened to me, to have people come up to me and work like, oh, can you explain Black Lives Matter? Like it's on their minds now. So even though it's ridiculous that I have to explain to you a sentence where like everything is like right there for you, Black Lives Matter, that's it, period, at the end. It's now on the table for conversation now. And I will say a lot of these corporations, their motivations, we know what their motivations are, but the fact that they feel pressured to release a statement speaks volumes. So I think as long as this momentum keeps rolling, a lot of things can be ushered in under this. So I'm very glad that is the topic of conversation right now.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, so for years and years, whenever these things happen, like, you know, in our conversations, we're always like, this is some BS. This is horrible. We're sad. We don't want to see it. But like white folks, it's just another day. It's just, you know, I had a situation with my wife, you know, it was literally, I think it was after Philando Castile was murdered. And then literally my wife woke up, was crying, and, you know, get on Google chat with her friend, and her friend is like, doesn't even address the fact that happened. That's not the situation we're in now. I think it's a perfect storm of like COVID making us bored and, you know, needing something to go out and do, or maybe just like understanding that Donald Trump's, you know, his brand of politics has consequences. Maybe it's just like all coming together, but now more than ever, it's not changing how Black folks are feeling. Maybe young Black folks who were not activated. It's actually white people who are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that was kind of my coded way of asking that question. Yeah, I mean, you know, we know, and I think you raised a good point with Philando Castile. I remember when that happened and just kind of how down I was, and you don't really, you can't really explain it to your white coworkers. You can't really explain it to, you know, some of your white friends who don't necessarily pay attention in the same manner. And so, you know, when things like that happen, it makes it a little bit, it's relief on one end that this is happening, but on the other end, it just kind of is maddening still, because it's like, why did it take the perfect storm of things for us to kind of get in this situation? And I actually had a theory that I had raised to a friend yesterday, the white friend of mine that, you know, I told him, I was like, you know, I don't really think this happens without a Trump presidency. And that's the weird part, is that it took the perfect blend of incompetence to not prepare for, or, you know, deliberate or not, to not prepare for a pandemic that leaves people shut in their homes for 2 months, that also has a political style that involves feeding fuel to white nationalists, that makes people more heightened and aware of racism in the country, that then concludes with a police officer kneeling on a man's neck for a counterfeit 20, a allegedly counterfeit 20 that wasn't counterfeit, for nearly 9 minutes, for the country to finally go, oh, wait a minute, I think I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to still not really get it. So I'm with y'all in the sense that I am glad to see these statements. However, there needs to be action. I appreciate things like As weird as it sounds, the Pokemon company donating $500,000 to Black causes.
Such bizarre times, man.
It's such a bizarre time, right? Like Pikachu is putting more money up than the president of the United States. Like, what does that say? I appreciate people like Matt Ryan starting a GoFundMe and putting $500,000 towards specific city of Atlanta issues for the Black community. Like different things like that. I wanted to do that to pick a time to slander on Drew Brees. But those little things really give me hope. But I am kind of saddened that it took all of this to see it.
Here's the thing. Let me interject for a second. I think America still hasn't realized that race is a white issue, not a Black issue. There's a very controversial Stokely Carmichael quote where he says, basically, every legislation passed is for white people. It's not for Black people. We have to tell you, the white person, like, hey, let these Black people vote without disrupting them. We have to tell you, the white person, like, hey, like, don't lynch a Black man. So I think, like you said, Matt, we have the perfect storm of white people now seeing that their lives are invaluable by, receiving one $1,200 check and then not having unemployment. So yeah, they're starting to realize, like, hey, my life isn't valuable. Well, so seeing that knee on George Floyd's neck is like, whoa, that could have been me too. And we've been sitting home idle this entire time. I think people are realizing like, hey, nobody lives matter as much to the government as we think they do. So,
and like the thing is like the thing that we got to continue to drive home. Like we got to I don't want to see people get all turned up right now, go out in the streets, go do all this protests and post every single minute of the day, Instagram story, Twitter, Instagram feeds. Anything you're doing right now, you need to keep that activity going.
Sustainability, yes.
Like don't do it because you're going to get some likes right now, because then you're the knee on the neck.
Mm-hmm.
You are making a mockery of something that's very real to us. And it's got to be authentic too. Like a lot of Caucasian folks are, and understandably, I'm not saying they're doing it in bad faith, but they want to call and do the temperature check. They want to call you, who is already their friend. I'm already a friend. So I've assumed that you're not a racist. You don't got to call me and tell me you're not a racist. You need to go talk to your uncle who you heard saying racist stuff last time you were with him. Don't talk to me. You don't got to tell me racism is wrong.
And to piggyback off that, I feel like that's how we truly fight these race issues in America. I tell all my white friends all the time, like, I'm not into self-flagellation. Like, you don't have to beat yourself on the back to say like, oh, I'm so sorry for what my ancestors did to you. Let me whip myself. Like, no, you don't have to do that. What you do is you navigate your spaces. And the next time, Pawpaw at the table says something racist, you put him in check. Next time your coworker says something about, the ratchet secretary, you put them in check. So you navigate the spaces in your life and you use your privilege to put people in check. That's how we fight this issue, because every single Black person, like over the past generations, I've been saying the same exact thing. Like, it's crazy that, I could tell you to go read what James Baldwin said and that still applies today. So we've been saying this stuff. So you need to be the one to go out, use your privilege, and to spread that message. I think that's the next step.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move forward here and slander somebody else that kind of deserves it.
A very poor use of privilege.
Very poor use of privilege. On Tuesday morning, Nancy Pelosi and a number of Democrats knelt for 8 minutes and 49 seconds to pay respect to. Okay, I see you want to get involved. To George Floyd, while wearing kente cloth. This, to kind of take some of the slander off Pelosi, was recommended by some members of the Congressional Black Caucus. You gotta deal with the issues where you can. This was actually recommended by members of the Congressional Black Caucus, but was widely ridiculed on social media, and deservedly so. Matt, this is news to you. You did not see Nancy Pelosi in the kente cloth, and I'm going to DM you some photos so that you can laugh. So, Ron, I'm going to go ahead and let you get the slander session off while I send Matt some photos So if you're watching this, when you see Matt laugh in real time, you'll know that he got the message.
So here's the thing: that entire thing was incredibly tone deaf. For one thing, kneeling was the I guess the protest du jour like a few years ago. So George Floyd died with a knee on his neck. So your manner of protest is to like, hey, let's take a knee. Incredibly tone deaf. Also, we don't need you to look like you just graduated from Black Student Union or something like with the kente cloth stoles. Like we don't need that. So what we need is action. So for them to say, hey, we're going to take this knee with kente cloth, but by the way, we're not going to even entertain the fun of the police. Like that's a slap in every Black American's face right now. So why I just couldn't believe it. I was like, they thought this was such a powerful moment, but this is and I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is the thing. These are the things that Fox News clowns Democrats on. They're like, oh, look at this. It's very performative because that's all that was. Like,
no, y'all, I'm here. Oh my God.
Performative progressivism strikes again.
Right. Like, you know, this is like part of the thing. And my mom is Caucasian, and I have like lots of friends who are Caucasian and everything. And like what I've continued to tell them is like that kind of crap, that's not what we need. We don't need performance. We just want you to treat us every day right. Tell your friends to treat us right. Tell your cousins to treat us right. When you see your cousins in an all-white room make the ratchet secretary joke like you talked about, call people on it. I don't need you telling me that you know lines from Martin. That doesn't do anything for me.
Like yeah, line from Martin cannot be "I Have a Dream" speech. If you're going to quote lines from Martin, please quote "Letter from Birmingham Jail." That is
why does no one know "Letters from Birmingham Jail"? Why does no one know that? Like, but you know,
it's uncomfortable. It's the very definition is why we're here. Like, right? Like, it's the whole issue.
They teach nothing about the civil rights movement. They just gloss over it like that thing was easy. Like Edgar Evers never got shot in his driveway. Emmett Till, we learn about Emmett Till from like, if you watch documentaries and you get yourself woke, you learn about Emmett Till. You don't learn about Emmett Till in 8th grade. How do you learn about Jefferson Davis, who was a traitor and a loser, but you don't learn about Emmett Till?
Let me get this in to just
okay. Go ahead.
In Alabama's curriculum, I don't know if it's still on the curriculum, but in 5th grade, we take a course called Alabama History. I don't even have to go any further than that to tell you what that entails. Ask me how many books were on, because of course I took like AP classes. So ask me how many books, Black novels were integrated into the curriculum. Ask me how many times we studied someone Black outside of Black History Month. Ask me, but no, we spent an entire year learning about Civil War battles, plantations, Civil War generals, but nothing about, you know, anybody else in the civil rights movement except Martin Luther King, and God bless him, by the way, but the way he's been sanitized like upsets me so much.
Yes. And really it just like it robs all of us, white, Black, you know, Native American, Indian, it robs us all of our identities. If you're a white person in this country and you don't understand your privilege, you don't know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've never thought about the fact that you could walk by, bump a police officer at the supermarket and, you know, could be like, my bad. But me, 6'3" Black dude, bump a police officer, I might get the knee on the neck. And like, if that never occurs to you, you're actually not enjoying your life enough. Like some of us would take a day with some white privilege. Like you're enjoying this every day. This is real.
You can vote for a man with no political experience and not reap a single consequence for it outside of, you know, now a pandemic, which is threatening people's lives. But you can do that and not think twice about it and experiment with your vote because he's the change candidate or whatever you wanted to place it as in 2016. And we can't do that. Like, say what you will about Joe Biden's progressive platform, and we'll get to that in a second. A lot of us would rather have another candidate, but we're going to support him because, hey, what's the alternative?
We had to vote for Lyndon Johnson, who regularly used the N-word regularly, like Martin in the room regularly.
And that's the man that signed the Civil Rights Act into law. That's the man that got the leverage for the Civil Rights Act to get passed. So what are we
have always had to be pragmatic. Like, what is going to move the ball forward? Like, y'all get to, like you said, you get to experiment with your vote. Oh, we'll throw a Molotov cocktail in there because you know that Molotov cocktail isn't going to burn down your house.
Exactly.
Ron, were you getting ready to say something and I cut you off? And
oh no, I was just going to mention that reminds me of a bit from a comedian I used to like, but he's now trash and canceled. Louis C.K. had the joke about how black people can't use time machines because he was like, as a white man, I could get in a time machine and land in any era and I'm cool. I could chill. Oh, there goes Thomas Jefferson. But a black man, he steps off in the 1960s. He steps off in the 1800s. Like, nah, I'm good.
Right. Good. Right. So I do want to give due to the House Democrats for introducing a police reform bill. It's not as robust as a lot of people would like, but as Matt just mentioned, any progress is progress as long as the conversation keeps moving. So while we are giving them an understandable slander session, we will go ahead and say that they did at least introduce a measure that we know is dead on arrival in the Senate. All right, moving forward. New Gallup polls have been released, and boy, did the president throw a temper tantrum over them. Gallup polls show that Joe Biden is leading Trump in double digits in certain categories, including independent voters and women. And that did not appease the orange one in chief at all, demanding an apology from CNN for actually broadcasting such polls. I have not seen any tweets or any kind of letters from a lawyer regarding Fox News airing that same poll number, but nonetheless, he is not very happy. Matt, you are a polling aficionado. Tell us what these numbers mean, where we are in this point in time, and what that may look like in November.
He's got a fundamental hole in the chip. And, we all need to come at this from the realization, the reality that he lost by a lot of votes. And if not for 70-something thousand from the very beginning, a lot of blue dog Democrats, conservative Democrats used Trump's victory as a way to try to steer the party in a rightward direction, always chasing the white working class voters or whatever heck euphemism they wanted to use. The reality is, if we got the voter turnout in Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, in Gary, Indiana, places like that, you got more votes than you need. But I say that to say that that's where the beginning of the story that we are, hopefully nearing the end of began. He started from the very beginning as a very unpopular president. He's never been over 50 in Gallup, as far as I best remember. Never. And that's
I don't think so. I think his peak in Gallup was like 46.
It's awful. And so it's because he's got fundamental issues that his political strategy has never been to try to improve his standing. People have issues with Barack Obama because a lot of times Barack Obama did chase after, moderate rural support, did things to try to, appease those folks. Donald Trump has done none of that. It's been a completely based strategy. He's not convinced anybody new since the beginning, and he's lost folks. So he's going to lose women by a 60-40 margin. All that's going to matter is the turnout actual number. The percentages are basically baked in. If the numbers come out, if we come out even just, I think we will have higher turnout. This is a hot take. I think we're going to have higher turnout this year than 2008. If we come out even just like we did in 12, this is going to be ugly. And it should be.
Mm-hmm. It should be. And I've been cautiously optimistic following, everything you post, especially the approval, disapproval polls that you've put out, converted into electoral map, because it looks promising. I mean, when you're seeing things like Georgia being deep blue, when you're seeing things like, Texas being light pink, it gets you kind of excited, like, oh, wow, this nightmare might finally end. But Ron, I know you, again, a pessimist. So I want you to go ahead and throw your water on the flame here. What is holding you up? What makes you hesitant about finally getting rid of this dumpster fire in November?
Interference, both domestic and abroad. Just have to say it. If you want to put what happened in Georgia on a microscope, voter suppression is still very real. That's why when Democratic officials say, hey, get out and vote, but do nothing to make sure that the black that basically minorities can get out to vote, or that people that live in these, like, by the way, I'm from the Black Belt. Just to tell you a quick story, there was one place to vote in Marengo County. It was basically first, let me take it back. First, you had to go get your voter ID from a newspaper in Marengo County in Linden, Alabama. It was only open Tuesdays and Thursdays between 12 and 4. That place is now closed. So where am I supposed to go get my voter ID if I'm a non-driver in Alabama?
Or you work a 9 to 5.
Or you work a 9 to 5, exactly. So making sure, like, it's ridiculous that mail-in voting isn't a thing, that the actual day to vote isn't, election day isn't like an actual like national holiday. Like, people should be offered that day so they could freely go vote, but it's so hard to vote in this country. But what I am optimistic about, Matt, and you mentioned this, we are going to have a huge turnout. I feel like people are energized right now, and whatever happens, but I do feel confident in that fact that there's going to be a major turnout. And I do think a lot of those people that foolishly voted third party or for Harambe RIP will actually vote for Joe Biden this time around. I mean, you really might have to like force their hand to scribble Joe Biden, but I really do think they're going to vote for Biden because people are so fed up with Trump. I even think you have the Republican who just said like, hey, I'm going to vote for Trump, and when he becomes president, he's going to do all right because he's going to step up to the office of the presidency. I even think that man is going to vote for Joe Biden now because he can relate to Joe Biden more than he could relate to Hillary.
Ron was a pessimist, man.
He usually is. He's usually ever the pessimist. So I am like, if Ron is turning the corner, and we have a mutual friend of ours named Hagen who is pretty much as radical left as you can get, I guess. Like, Hagen is like burn everything down all the way to the core, even beyond that. And even Hagen is like, look, I don't want to do it, but I will vote for Biden. That gives me hope. Like,
because the what have to lose argument, that is clear now. Like,
yes.
The short
we have a large sample size of what we have to lose, which is a lot. So
a lot. And man, I think it's crazy that, again, just like with Black Lives Matter, it kind of took this pandemic for a lot of people to really officially shift. To me, I think there were people that were on the fence and it was always a close call. But once people saw the incompetence on display to where it can no longer be hidden and twisted by Republican party lines or any way that they want to twist it, once it became on display, there was nothing that they could do. And I think the best thing that ever happened was those PACs getting together and really laying a timeline to people about just how bad he messed this up.
Yeah, I to your point about Russian interference, I will say that like Robert Mueller said, they never stop. So to a certain degree, that's already baked into the cake. Like, every time Trump does something stupid, and if you get on Twitter or you get on Facebook, you can start seeing the trolls, like, and some of them are bad faith Republicans who live in the US, but some of this stuff is like, sure, Vlad, you know where this is coming from. So I will say, to a lot of liberals like myself who really are afraid of and take the Russian interference seriously, it's not to discount it, but remember that it has never stopped.
Yeah, and to me, people who are just as she who shall not be named, we don't drop the name of the
Democratic candidate this last.
No, I don't drop. I don't want to say her name, and I'm trying to refrain from using the shorthand for a raccoon. But people like that to me are more dangerous than a lot of the Russian troll jobs, because a lot of people that are, I don't want to say are, a lot of people that have already made the decision or have been on the fence are more aware of those things. They're more aware of those Russian trolls, and they're more so to feed a base, in my opinion. So, you know, I don't worry about them as much as I worry about people like Charlie Kirk and, you know, again, she who shall not be named, because I will not.
Shout out to Church of the Highlands.
Yeah, shout out Church of the Highlands. I'm glad all that's burning down. I just want to say, I want to take a victory lap real quick on two different things. One on Church of the Highlands, and been telling y'all that something ain't right about it. Number two has been, I forgot the other one. I was going to take the victory lap too. Either way, I just wanted to let y'all know that I was right. Oh yes, Instagram comedians not being funny. I wanted to let y'all know that I was correct this whole time, and I've been telling y'all Desi Banks was not funny, and it just took that dropping on the timeline for everybody to, you know. So that's my two victory laps. But I do want to circle back around to a point that was brought up earlier, especially by Ron and Matt. This has to do with you being a resident of Virginia. Governor Northam, he declared Election Day a state holiday, correct?
That was a state law that we passed, but yes.
Okay. So a state law was passed. And so how do you, I want to know what you think that will do in terms of turnout, in terms of voter turnout. What are the actions that law has taken in terms of ensuring people have that day to vote and protecting that right? And how do you think under a Biden presidency, we can make something like that happen?
I'll say the Election Day as a state holiday, that really, I think in my mind, I am, in terms of it being a symbolic thing, I think it's a yes. If I was in the, if I was, a voting member of the body, I would have voted yes on that bill. But that's more of a symbolic thing at the state level, because you don't actually get folks off of work. So there are other things that we did in terms of, absentee in person, in terms of no excuse absentee, in terms of extending poll lines, and in terms of getting rid of voter ID. I think the entire package of what we did in Virginia will make this election much easier for people. And I will say about Virginia, we used to be a swing state, but as long as Donald Trump is in office, they are in big trouble here, like big trouble. So, it was already bad for them. I think, goodness, for every dollar Donald Trump decides to spend in the DC media market, because they're all being just set on fire. Like,
okay, so you raised another good point. And again, Ron, feel free to jump in with this one, because I do think we are seeing a continued shift in the electoral map. Georgia is a state that has been threatening to be purple for some time. I think it honestly was in 2018. I think it should have been. We all know that Abrams flat out won that election, but I think we're seeing states that are giving way now, right? Like North Carolina is well on its way to transitioning to a blue state. Virginia is trying to solidify itself as a blue state. Georgia is trying to convert, and even Texas is possibly at play here. What do you think we see, not just from, an electoral stance with this election, but from a Senate stance? We have the possibility to flip. Do you think that is legitimately on the table? And can you tell us why?
Ron, right?
Say again?
Ron to take that one?
Oh, I was going to say, either one of you can take it. I was saying, Ron, you're welcome to jump in.
Oh, yeah. Well,
for a minute. So go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, personally, like, when I guess we've been setting up our dream team of where everyone who was on stage for the Democratic nomination, where they'll end up, I've always said, like, oh, I would really like to see Elizabeth Warren as the majority leader, and because that's the goal I'm setting. So I do think the electorate is getting older. I mean, excuse me, is getting younger, and they're just getting like more fed up. So a lot of these states that are typically like, I don't think even like have a chance. I think they're now battleground states, and I do think a lot of those are going to flip. Like, I do think Lindsey Graham is in serious trouble. I do think McConnell, like, I mean, of course, he's gonna do something, but I think he needs to be looking over his shoulder as well. So I think a lot of these people who normally aren't threatened, like, you need to look out.
And the thing about wave elections, and it's we're getting into unprecedented territory because we had a wave in 17, we had a wave in 18, we had a wave in 19 where you win Louisiana and Kentucky. So like to expect a wave 4 years in a row is a lot. But with that said, like I said, nothing has really changed fundamentally with these polling results. And people, even before people woke up to Black Lives Matter, before then, Donald Trump was taking heavy prices at the ballots, at the ballot box. So, when you have a wave election, they all tend to go one way. And if that happens, we could be talking, not only just flip, but like a little bit of a cushion in there in the Senate, more like 54, 53, 54 seats.
Yeah, I mean, because I think we all know we're likely losing Jones. Like, we know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I know. I spent 10, 12 years in Alabama. Ron is from there. We just know. Like, it took a pedophile getting the nomination.
Yeah,
So we know that one's off the table, but John Ossoff is now outright won the nomination for Senate in Georgia. He's somebody that has been on the rise here. Loeffler is extremely unpopular, so you have that one on the table. As Ron mentioned, Lindsey Graham is actually in trouble with Jamie Harris, and there are polls that show him in the lead, which I'm waiting on that day. Good God. There are polls that show him in the lead. There are polls that show McConnell in danger. I'm with Ron that my dream scenario is that as much as I love Warren and want her to be VP, I would love it more for her to be, Senate Majority Leader. All those different things are on the table here. And I do think there's reason for optimism. I think there is a reason, like I'm kind of waiting for November on one end so we can get rid of this nightmare. But number two, that means that there's competent people who distribute a vaccine. But it's just all these different things kind of roll into this. And it really has just kind of, I don't know, it feels unreal. So like part of me is just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, at the same time, the data says like
scary though. Like the scariness is kind of like, I always relate things back to my playing days of playing football and coaching. And the fear of it all is kind of like the best part. Like when you're out there, if you're like especially on the offensive and defensive lines, you got to go all out. It doesn't matter if you're, up or whatever, because if you're playing half speed, that's when you get yourself hurt. You get a torn ACL, somebody falls on you. So like the fear is kind of like it spices up the moment. Like I was afraid that Northam in 17 wasn't going to pull off Virginia, and we whooped them by 9 points. Like I wouldn't have changed. I didn't like say, "Oh, Northam won by 9." Man, I could have hung out and just ordered pizza. No, like it's all part of the ride.
Yeah, one of our good friends, Ryan Campbell, was a mayoral candidate for Smyrna, Georgia, and he talked about kind of largely the same thing, how demographics shift. I think it's really interesting, especially as we've seen all this kind of unfold in real time, because let's be real, all of this should already be commonplace. Like Hillary should be president, and we should be looking at a possible reelection. We should be talking about paid maternity leave. We should be talking about expanded ACA, but we're not. And I'm hoping that this mistake. Let me roll into this question here, because again, we have one more thing that we want to cover, but now I'm just kind of going off track here because I don't know. Matt's been really interesting. We thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we may have on the table moving forward. What do you think happens with the Republican Party? Because you can't go back to a Trump-like candidate. What happens from here, especially depending on what could get passed by Democrats under a Biden presidency and what he has taken on as far as wanting to be an FDR-sized presidency. What is their future from here?
My current boss is a former Republican, so he has a soft spot for Republicans, and we talk about this kind of often. He has the hope, as I used to hope, that the Republicans would see the writing on the wall when they nominate a Corey Stewart. They would see the writing on the wall when they nominate a Roy Moore. just based on the results that I'm seeing, it's kind of like if you're a Washington football fan or you're a Dallas Cowboys football fan, they got to show me that they're going to do differently. And I really don't believe that even if we whoop them, they have only progressively become more and more conservative, more dug in, and they will do to Biden exactly what they did to Obama his first term, and we got to be ready to turn out again and again and again, because they are going to try to obstruct and try to tear down people's faith in the fact that government can work. So we got to be prepared for that, man. I wish that the Republicans would wake the hell up, but they're not. It's really cultish behavior. I hate saying, but it's very cultish.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there. It's kind of just, on one end, I kind of want them to continue going that route because it's not working. And it just kind of gives us green light to go ahead and put whatever in. Like, hey, look, I'm even more upset that we don't have a Warren nomination just because it looks like, man, she would have walked right in. But, at the same time, I also understand that this country still has a lot of underlying prejudices. So maybe she doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like,
supporters as well.
Yeah, we were both. Well, I know. Well, we were both big Warren. Warren Stan accounts.
Yeah, I was waving the Warren flag heavy. Yeah.
I was talking with somebody earlier today, man. She would have been the best president.
Oh yeah.
And people are so afraid of losing to Trump again that outweighed everything. It didn't matter what somebody said. It's like, we can't chance not nominating an old white guy.
Yeah, I feel like to use another sports analogy, I feel like we were playing for the tie here. Instead of just picking the best person, we was like, okay, we got to get the person to just get us over the line. Like, no, Elizabeth Warren is right there. She's right there.
Right. Moment.
Yeah. It's Super Bowl 51 and you have the option to kick the field goal and take the lead or try to.
Right. Oh my God. Sorry.
Falcons one?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a Falcons fan.
He's a Falcons fan. Yeah.
Up in that.
I watched that with my friend who's he's been a Falcons fan my whole time. I was like hyped for him. I'm like, you guys are going to get it. He's like, he felt bad the whole time. Oh my God, I can't believe y'all lost that.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. I've been a Falcons fan like for 2 decades, and I knew the whole game. Like my wife, we were celebrating. Like she was celebrating. She's like, "Look, babe, you're up. Y'all are up in the Super Bowl." I was like, "Babe, we're the Falcons, and that's Tom Brady." Like it's just.
We had y'all back next year, though. I'm an Eagles fan, so we had y'all back.
Okay. Like I'm an Eagles fan too. All right.
Word.
Good man.
Now,
good man.
The funny thing with Ron is that Ron gave up football, of course, because of the Kaepernick protest and the NFL's reaction. And they won the Super Bowl the year.
And they won the Super Bowl the year that I gave up the NFL. Because why not? Yeah.
So you didn't watch at all? You didn't watch any of it? Oh no!
Which is funny enough, simultaneously the reason why I won't give it up, because I know that the minute I do, that's what's going to happen, right? Like I'm going to denounce the Falcons. They're going to go on a 16-0 run. They're going to win the Super Bowl by like the largest margin in history, and I won't be part of the ride. And that's me holding on to. Anyway, we have gotten sidetracked.
I know this wasn't one of the topics that y'all wanted to talk about, but I do think Colin Kaepernick plays a game this season. Hot take.
I've been leaning that way with the pressure. Because now that, for lack of a better euphemism, now they're on their neck, and I feel like it's that once you come at the neck like that, they made the mistake of making the statement without regular action, because you had to know if you put that statement out there, people gonna be like, okay, so y'all gonna call Colin? My hot take response to that is that they will ensure Cam Newton gets on the Patriots or something like that before they gotta call Colin. The only thing that's holding it up is that Cam is still out there.
Cam's still out there. Yeah.
So look,
So Matt, basically what you're saying is that you're going to have us on the sports podcast to talk about this, because
we'll come on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had all that time in radio for some reason. So
radio voice for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. I do. So last thing I do want to cover today, and then we won't hold Matt too long. Steve Mnuchin, it's been announced that they will no longer make information regarding what businesses receive funding from the CARES Act public knowledge. Raise your hand if you're shocked. Nobody. Okay. So let's talk through this, Matt. A big show that was made from Democrats in both the Senate and the House was that this money would be made public knowledge. How do we put the pressure on Mnuchin, on Trump, moving forward? Because we're trying to get another stimulus bill passed. Republicans have pretty much said they don't want to do anything until July. What do we do from here? What's the best way to go about this?
It's just social media, petitions. I mean, honestly, we're at one of these really, my whole goal in being involved in politics is always try to give people hope and like a reason to think. But honestly, they're not going to change their minds. They are going to do this because it's an election year and they need their help from their donors. So they're going to, I know of far too many organizations that had no damn business getting that money and have shamelessly went and got it. And they know on the other end of it that Trump knows that those businesses are going to be happy that they get some of that money. So it's going to send it into a GOP super PAC or give the $2,800 they can give them. So, I like to be, the bearer of good news, but the bad news is this is sticking through the election.
All right. Last thing I'll ask you, and then we'll be done wasting your time for today. VP picks. We have been running our own kind of power rankings every week that we've been running back and forth with. We have been, I'll go ahead and tell you what we have wanted, but we know is not going to happen at this point. We have been avid, again, also Tammy Duckworth stan accounts in terms of driving that last bit of voting block that Biden would have, so not only bringing in a woman of color, but also bringing in somebody who's a certified, badass Army veteran, but who also can hold her own. I'm sorry, man. But who can also hold her own. Where are you standing? Because we're back and forth. Keisha Lance Bottoms is on this list. Val Demings is on this list. Now in this time, there's just no way that they can bring in the salad comb. I need to know where do you stand with VP picks? That's my name for Amy Klobuchar. Where do you stand with your name for VP picks? Who do you think is most likely, and where do you think we're headed?
I can't believe she ate salad with a comb, or that she was phoned at people, whatever. Hell no, Amy Klobuchar. Hell no. That would be a worse pick than Hillary picking Tim Kaine, who was my first boss. I like Tim. Great guy. Tim, if you're listening, I'm not saying you're a bad guy, that you do bad legislation, but you were not the man for the moment. And Amy Klobuchar, I feel the same. I would like Warren. I've heard some interesting rumblings there about if they could, there's ways around the when Elizabeth Warren would announce that her final day in office would be as a U.S. senator. Then we could finally kind of like finagle it so we don't lose the Senate seat when it really matters. All in all, I think it's got to be, a top three is going to be Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, and Gretchen Whitmer. I think I really like the idea that you guys talked about with Warren as Senate Majority Leader. I don't know if the establishment would love that, but shit, if we put them in there, we need to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. As Ron, if you're watching this on stream, just put up the hashtag Big Gretch Stan account.
Big Gretch.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement there with those being a solid top three. I'm torn on Stacey. I think Stacey would do a phenomenal job, but I want her back home. Just because I think 2022 is ripe for her to win the governor's seat and run on the campaign of I tried to warn y'all. But again, any of those three, I think they would be able to rise to the occasion, rise to the challenge. I'd be all for Kamala getting the role. I'd be all for Gretchen Whitmer getting the role, but I think he said his target date is what, early August, right, for his announcement.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the moment that we're in as a country, for him to choose a white obviously he's not going to be a man. For him to choose, if I like Gretchen, but it's a little tone deaf. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah. I kind of feel like he's pigeonholed in now. Like it's got to be Stacey, it's got to be Kamala, it's got to be Val or Keisha. It has to be one of them. And I don't even know if Keisha doesn't backfire.
Yeah, Susan Rice is another one. I think that would, if he wants to go with the more conservative direction, to kind of make the national security people feel good or whatever. Like people don't care about national security. Like that's not only something people care about national security.
I mean, okay, let me ask you one more thing. What is your take on all of these kind of big name Republicans coming out against Trump, from Mattis to W to Colin Powell? I mean, those are pretty, again, the people in Trump's base aren't moving because of that, but those are pretty big names for people that may have been on the fence. Do you think that moves the needle at all?
It moves the needle, just like what we were talking about with the conversation with like other Caucasians who want to do something. You can't just say racism is bad. You actually have to do something about it. So if y'all want to say Trump is bad, I'm voting for Biden. I'm bringing my friends to vote for Biden. I'm running people to the polls to vote for Biden, because that's what we have to do. I can talk about the ideologies later. Then it's a good thing. If you're just saying Trump is bad, everybody knows Trump sucks. Some people think that they can benefit from Trump, which is why he continues to be in power.
Ted Cruz. Little weasel. Anyway.
Let me pause. How do you get past somebody saying your wife is ugly, though? Like, that is past ugly.
And your daddy was a serial killer.
Dude, he said his dad was the Zodiac killer. Yeah. How wild is that?
You said those two things. You talked about my wife and you talked about my daddy. And this man is still up here standing Trump whenever he can. Like,
we don't know who the Zodiac killer is, but he emphatically said it's Ted Cruz's father.
It's Ted Cruz's daddy. That was unwarranted and uncalled for. Like, there was nothing that could have put you in that domain. Like,
and like my thing, like when we talked about impeachment and all that, like Democrats would have abandoned Obama for some of this crap. Like, I love Barack Obama. He means, like, just as of what he stood for, he means something special to me. But if he's out here talking about grabbing women,
yeah,
that campaign would have been over.
That
they would have been writing the pieces on Obama that they wrote about Joe Biden about, well, why don't we replace him with Andrew Cuomo? The minute that tape came out, they'd have been like, well, let's go ahead and put Hillary Clinton in his place. Let's go ahead and put who was the nom du jour at the time for the Democratic Party that wasn't Hillary.
John Edwards.
Let's put John Edwards. Well, didn't that whole thing with his wife come out at that point in time?
Oh, yeah, it was like March of 20. He actually got to get some delegates, I believe.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Ooh, buddy. Either way, that campaign would have been dead in the water even if Obama had the nomination. So, again, it's a tired trope now of what if this was Obama, but you kind of can't quit playing the game because it's eternally true. Like, there is no point in time where that rule of thumb doesn't apply.
When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Everybody knows what that means.
Not that George Wallace said the same exact thing 50 years ago or anything,
No point to either. Anyway, Matt, we could be talking to you forever if you allowed us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Thanks for coming out, man. Thanks.
We're going to have you back. We're going to have to join the sports podcast. Go ahead and promote yourself and all of your stuff. I'm going to give you the next few minutes to promote whatever you want to promote here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, what I try to do with everything that I do is just try to reach, obviously, Democrats and give them, hope that there are ways through our current predicaments, but also to try to speak to people who aren't normally involved in politics. So follow me at Politidope, Politidope. That's on Instagram and on Twitter. There's Politidope.com, a company that I started with my wife. Politidope Inc. It's a Virginia benefit corporation. So we do event planning and political consulting. and a percentage of that money we put towards running what's called the Politidope Emerging Leaders Program, which is a program for 13 to 17-year-olds. And we try to teach them not only that you can vote or how to register to vote, but how to affect the political process 365 days. Because, you know, we got Rock the Vote, we got Vote.org, we got all these organizations that get people registered to vote. But the problem is nobody understands why to vote. What are you voting on? What lever of power am I changing if I voted this November, if I voted this June, if I voted this August? So that's my shameless plugs. And thank you for having me on, guys. It's always good to talk to some brothers who got their heads on straight. So it was a pleasure.
Last question I do want to ask you. What are your thoughts on this coalition of, which, by the way, if y'all don't have kids and you want to know what it's like, I hope you've been watching the last hour. But what are your thoughts on celebrities like Diddy and God rest in peace, Ice Cube's account? It's gone. He's gone full onk on us. What do you think about people like Diddy and Ice Cube and Charlemagne who are trying to get us to leverage the black vote by sitting out? I'm going to let you have the floor on this one. How do we respond when celebrities say the Democratic Party takes us for granted and we just shouldn't vote?
Well, they're taking their status for granted. And, you know, when you got the president of the United States shooting tear gas in the crowd so that he can do a photo op, it's a very clear shot across the bow, literally. And, you know, it's very easy for those folks. It wouldn't be easy for me if I had money, and you got to ask them about their own character. But it is easier for those people who are in places of privilege to say, oh, it doesn't matter. We'll leverage it for better outcomes next time, as neo-Nazis run the street and our killer cops are being emboldened. And so those people very much should be ashamed of themselves. They've been disinvited from the barbecue in my book and in many other people's books. And enjoy your own barbecues, you know, with Uncle Ruckus in them.
And she who shall not be named. Matt, thank you for your time. We appreciate you today. Thank you for joining us. If you are new,
sun's not open. No, next time I'll put the blind so it's not all messed up. The visuals are all messed up.
I mean, it's good, man. I'm in a closet. So, you know, if you have not joined us before, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, the KWC blog. Go to thekidswearcrowns.com. Follow us on Twitter at the KWC blog. You can follow myself on Twitter at RHINE KWC. Ron, any last words here before we go?
Big Gretch. No, just playing. No, for real. Matt, it's been a great episode. Thanks for joining us, man. We definitely got to have you back.
Please do. Well, I'll be talking to y'all soon for sure.
All right. Podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public. Make sure you check it out there. Thank you to Matt, for Ron. We are out. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.